This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Welcome to What the Fork Wednesday, the stories that make you stop, blink twice, and ask yourself how this is real life. Logic has left the building. Let's begin.
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Ask a Bee, and today is What the Fork Wednesday, which means we are officially clocking in for the mess, the confusion, the questionable decisions, and the moments where everybody involved absolutely could have paused and absolutely did not. So if you're new here, this is how the show works. I bring the story, we walk it all the way through together, even get a few comments in. I break down what actually happened, why people reacted the way they did, because I'm all about reactions. I taught my kids reactions are everything. I think we would do better if more would do that. But this is where things went sideways, okay? And then you decide the verdict. Was this honey, meaning grace or growth and maybe a second chance? Or was this full-on stinger, consequences earned and lesson delivered? Okay, drop your vote in the chat as we go, because I read them, I weigh them, and sometimes y'all change my mind before the whole show is over with. And seriously, y'all hit that chat, because I will say hello to you just as soon as you walk in. I swear it. So today's case is already giving red stingers, okay, before we even get past the first paragraph. And I'm telling you right now, this is one of those stories where everybody thinks they're right. Everybody swears they were justified, and somehow the fallout still lands in everybody's lap anyway. So get comfortable, hit that like button so more people can see the hive. Say hello in the chat. I'm serious. I will say hello back. I promise. And tell me where you're watching from, because sure, I'd like to know. And that's that. Let's get into today's What the Fork Wednesday, because, okay, this one is about to make us work. All right, y'all, let's get started at the beginning. All right. Let me make sure I've got my stuff going on here. Now then. All right. Here we go. I've tested myself on a few new things. We're going to try it out. Y'all give me a second here. And here, and look, wrong one. This is the one I wanted. But here I am again. So now, am I the a-hole for telling my ex that she needs to figure it out when it comes to hosting people for her grandmother's funeral, even though I am living in her grandmother's house? Ruh-roh. Why are you in her grandmother's house? My ex and I got divorced earlier this year. When we were married, we bought her grandmother's house. This house was built in the 1910s and had been in my ex's family since then. Wow. There's some history there. It is quite large. It was de facto the house where my ex's family would stay when they came into town for anything. This continued into our purchase of the house and was a part of my decision to divorce her. Uh-oh. When we bought it, we primarily used my premarital savings and inheritance. Uh-oh. That was 5-ish years ago when we got divorced. The court determined that the bulk of the house, 90%, belonged to me in accordance with the post-nup agreement. My ex tried a number of scenarios where she would keep the house or it would go into a trust for our kids, so it would stay in the family. The only thing I would agree to is selling the house, her buying me out or me buying her out. We went with the latter because my ex did not have the money to buy me out. Okay. let's pause here for just a second, because already, before we can get to the funeral, we've got three things colliding: money, family, and entitlement, and unresolved divorce tension, okay, which is basically the holy trinity of future chaos, right? Yeah, let's be very clear about something right up front. This is not grandma's house anymore in a legal sense. Emotionally, sure. Historically, absolutely. But legally, according to a court and a post-nup agreement, 90% of that property belongs to him. Not 50, not murky, not debated. 90. And that matters, because the story isn't framed as I kicked my grieving ex out. The story is framed as we divorced, the court split the assets. She tried to keep the house inside her family. I refused unless I was paid out, and I ended up buying her out because she couldn't afford to buy me. So right now, what I'm hearing is this: he put premarital savings and inheritance into the place, right? That house was already a stress point in the marriage because her family constantly used it as a free hotel. And the court sided with him financially when everything was untangled. That doesn't make him warm and fuzzy, but it does mean he isn't freeloading in someone else's home. So he owns it. Now, the emotional layer is where this is going to get messy, because, yes, it was her grandmother's house. Yes, a funeral is involved. And yes, grief makes people act sideways. All of that is true at the same time, but grief does not magically undo divorce settlements. And grief definitely does not rewrite contracts, nor does grief turn a legal owner into a temporary guest. So when the question is, am I wrong for telling my ex she needs to figure out hosting people when I live in her grandmother's house? My immediate reaction at this stage is the phrasing is going to matter later, okay? But the ownership reality is not in dispute. If she no longer owns the house, she does not get to unilaterally dictate how it's used, right? Even for family events, it's not hers anymore. And if anything, it'll be her kids. And she better be happy for that saving grace. Whatever, I'm saying this assuming that she was the reason that they were divorced, but without coordinating with the person who does own it now, right now, based strictly on what we have so far, I'm leaning not the a-hole yet. Okay, not because funerals aren't sensitive, but because legal reality and emotional history are not the same thing. And pretending that they are is how people end up shocked when boundaries get enforced. Now, I already know this story isn't stopping here, because nobody asks, am I the AITA? Am I the a-hole over just a clean property settlement? Something else is coming, right? That something is probably where the tone changes. So let's keep reading. The day after Christmas, my ex's grandmother died. She had been sick for years, and the reason we bought the house is because she could no longer live on her own and desperately needed money for end-of-life care. Anyway, yesterday afternoon, my ex's cousin shows up at the house with his family. What? We haven't told him? He drove into town for the funeral on Thursday. Apparently, he and his sister texted my ex and said that they would be staying at the house, insider family term for my house. And she indicated she was okay with that. Oh, why would she do that? That's not her place. So I called my ex and asked her why she volunteered my house for hosting people. Good question. She apologized and said she had been running around getting things done for the funeral, but she asked if I would be willing to host because they really do not have space for people without using the house. I told her no. Good for you. And that they need to get hotels or whatever else arrangements. She said they do not have money to get everyone hotels and people are struggling financially. There is plenty of extra room in the house. They could just be in the finished basement with their own bathroom, kitchen, entry, and exit. I told her no. Good. Stand your ground, people. She got quite upset and hung up on me. I told the cousin and his family that they cannot stay. Am I the a-hole? No. No. So now that we have the second half of the story, this is where the emotional pressure really turns up, right? Because now we're no longer talking about abstract property rights or old divorce paperwork. We're talking about a death in the family, people traveling for a funeral, relatives already showing up with bags in hand, and a woman who is clearly overwhelmed trying to juggle logistics while grieving her grandmother. So, yes, I fully understand why the situation feels explosive from every angle, right? Got to give her that little bit of grace. You got to. Hey, Sage, how are you, friend? Good to see you. How you been? So, but understanding why someone behaves badly is not the same thing as saying they were entitled to do what they did. She had no right. I mean, he could have been a little bit, more, but she had no right. So let's start with the cleanest piece of this. Okay. The ex-wife absolutely should not have told her cousin and sister that they could stay at the house without clearing it with the person who currently owns it. I mean, that's just common sense, right? Full stop. It does not matter that the house used to belong to her family. It does not matter that the basement has its own kitchen and entrance. It does not matter, okay, that people are struggling financially or that hotels are expensive. Those things create sympathy. Understood. They do not create authority, though. She no longer owns the home and she does not get to offer it up as lodging like nothing has changed, especially when the story itself tells us that her relatives treating the place like a permanent crash pad was part of part of what contributed to the divorce in the first place. Hey, Paul, how you doing? Good to see you. So that history makes this even more sensitive, not less, right? Because from his perspective, it isn't just about one funeral. It feels like the exact pattern that blew up the marriage, trying to restart the moment emotions got high. Now, on his side, saying no is not cruel in and of itself. Okay, it's not. Boundaries are not cruelty. Protecting your home is not cruelty, and refusing to reopen a dynamic that damaged your marriage is definitely not cruelty. Okay, get that straight, please. Y'all hit that like button while you're here. So people love to pretend that empathy ends or means sacrificing yourself whenever someone else is hurting, and that sympathy is not true. It's not. Most definitely not. Empathy can coexist from firm limits. And in this case, he was well within his rights to say, I'm not hosting extended family here. They need to get hotels or make other arrangements, even if that answer disappointed everyone. Where things start to get messy, I guess, is how it unfolded after, that first refusal. Because once his ex explained that she was overwhelmed, that money was tight for relatives. Of course it was. Anything to get one over, right? And that they were scrambling to make arrangements. This became less about who legally owns the house and more about how much grace you choose to extend when people are under real stress. Personally, I would have been a little more graceful about this, I think. Yeah, probably. He didn't owe them his home, but the emotional temperature of the moment meant that the delivery was always going to matter just as much as the decision did itself. And then we hit the part that makes a lot of audiences flinch. Instead of telling his ex, you need to handle your family and let them know they can't stay, he went directly to the cousin and told them they have to leave. That movement is efficient, but it also is blunt. And in the middle of a funeral week, blunt can feel humiliating and explosive, even if the boundary is legitimate. That gives me an idea. I should tell a busload of strangers they can stay at my ex-wife's house. Maybe I should have asked her first. You should do that, and you should make a video of it, and you should show it to me because I need that kind of laughter in my life. Seriously, please do it. Please, Sage. That is perfect. I'm telling you. All right. So when I weigh this whole thing, honestly, I am not comfortable calling him heartless. And I'm not comfortable calling her entitled in a vacuum either. She made a real mistake by volunteering a house she doesn't own, okay? And trying to fix it after people were already on the doorstep. That created the entire crisis, Come on. He was justified in refusing to host and in protecting himself from a pattern that already hurt him before. I get that. I do. I really do. I guess I'm more empathic. I bet that. Yeah, I'm more empathic, I guess. I would feel bad for not saying no because of the funeral. But at the same time, the lack of any attempt to soften the blow, no offer to help coordinate cheaper hotels, no suggestion of splitting costs, no letting his ex be the one to break the news to her family, is what keeps this from being a clean slam dunk in his favor. So, yeah, if I'm giving this a B verdict, it lands here. Honey for enforcing the boundary, stinger for the delivery. Okay. Reactions are everything. Don't react at first. I don't care what kind of time crunch you got going. Don't react. This is what happens when you do. Okay, so not because he was wrong to say no, all right, but because when grief is involved, the way you say no can either keep a situation from detonating or pour gasoline on it, right? And in this case, he chose the version that made everything burn hotter than it probably needed to. All right, now let's see what happens next, because something tells me the comments are about to be split straight down the middle on this one. A little bit nervous, to be honest, okay? We do have an edit and a couple of comments that I pulled because, yeah, I'm good like that. So here's the edit. I like this better. What do you think? Oh, that way. Haha, this better. What do you think? I like it. Yeah. So, all right, here we go. I gotta get my stuff together. So people, let's see the edit. People seem to be assuming the house was discounted to us when we bought it. It was not. It had been on the market for a year, and the price had been decreased multiple times with no offers for the listed price at any point. We bought it for the initial price it was listed for, which was the appraisal price. Okay. Okay. Good. So the second one, my personal preference was that my ex buy me out, or second edit, my ex buy me out of the house. She did not have the money to do so. My next preference was to sell the house. My ex begged me to keep the house, so I agreed to do so. Okay, good job. Number three, the trust idea she had would mean putting the house in a trust with a life estate to me and the remainder to my son. Good. This would effectively prohibit me from selling the house. I have no intentions of selling now, but I refuse to put myself in a position where I cannot sell in the future if I decide I need to do so. Good job. I agree. But I do have a trust for my son now. He's 3 years old, where he will inherit my assets at the time I die. Good. Okay. This is good. This is good. So this edit actually matters a lot. It gives a little more context because what he's doing here is responding to the most common assumptions people were already making about him, right? That he somehow swooped in and bought a family home at a discount, that he forced his ex out against her will, okay, or that he refused the trust option of spite. And when you line those clarifications up, they do soften the position in some important ways. First, the pricing piece changes the tone. If the house had been sitting on the market for a year and he paid full appraisal price instead of getting, some sentimental sweetheart deal, ice falling off of the roof today, that undercuts the idea that he exploited the situation to grab a family property cheap. That makes this a standard purchase, I would think, not a predatory one. Second, the buyout issue is important because he's making it clear that he wanted his ex to keep the house if she could, afford it. Obviously, she can't. And when that wasn't possible, he even preferred selling it outright, which would have fully closed the chapter for both of them. So the fact that she begged him to keep it is a big detail because it means the current arrangement wasn't something he imposed on her. So that kind of takes the stinger out a little bit for me. It was something she actively pushed for. And third, the trust proposal explains why he bought, a life estate trust that prevents him from ever selling the property. It's not a neutral compromise. That is a permanent legal restriction on his finances and house security. And refusing to lock yourself into something like that when you are newly divorced and trying to rebuild stability, it's not unreasonable at all, especially when you already have a separate trust set up to leave your assets to your child. So taken together, this edit, it pushes the needle further in his favor, I think. More honey there. And I don't mean needle by stinger, right? It doesn't change the fact that funerals are emotionally charged and that compassion still matters in delivery, but it does reinforce that he has consistently tried to handle the house in a fair, future-proof way rather than out of vengeance. So with this new information layered in, my B verdict stays the same on the hosting decision. He was within the rights to say no, right? But the context makes him look more reasonable overall. And if we're sliding the needle, this edit nudges him closer to a solid honey than where he was before. Absolutely. All right, so I have comment. The first one, exactly why it doesn't last for very long. People realize it's a full-time job and they're not qualified for it and give up. True. Elder care is not a walk in the park. No, it is not. As for the house, that means someone needs to keep showing up to maintain it and making sure it's not falling apart, taking care of the lawn, paying taxes if they're in a state. where that's applicable, fixing what needs to be fixed, given it was an elderly woman's house and probably hadn't been maintained. There are a lot of factors at play here. What they shouldn't have done is assume that it was always going to be in the family if none of them wanted to move in and take care of it. Amen. All right. Especially if they knew the original poster paid the majority of the money buying it. It's wild they assumed it. True. Because they must know about the divorce. Yeah. So this person, you know what, is making a really solid point, because sentimental homes don't pay their own taxes or fix their own roofs. Let me tell you, I am dealing with that myself. If I could pay my delinquent taxes right now, I would, and I'm trying. So y'all hit that like button so more people can see me, please. But listen, a century-old houses, okay, especially, are basically a full-time responsibility, whether relatives are staying there or not. And you know what? It's a blessing and a curse to be an only child, and that's what I am. And I feel really bad for these people. So the assumption that something automatically stays in the family only works if somebody in that family is actually living there, maintaining it, footing the bills. And in this case, that clearly wasn't happening, since the original poster paid most of the purchase price, right? And later ended up owning the majority after the divorce, which makes the family's continued expectation that they can treat it like a free hotel feel disconnected from, reality, especially when they absolutely know the marriage ended. So while grief explains the emotional reaction, it doesn't justify ignoring the practical and legal situation on the ground. And this comment basically reinforces why the original poster's boundary wasn't outrageous. It was overdue. It's crazy. So, okay, the second one. It's the most beautiful and most devastating thing we've done. My grandmother has been living with my mom for 15 years at this point. She sank into a severe depression when my grandpa died. I'm so sorry to hear that. Then started to show symptoms of dementia and Parkinson's. So my mom decided to take her in. I'm so happy for your mom. Good job, Mom. What followed were 15 years of agony as she watched her slowly wither away. She is on her deathbed now, and the hospice nurse visiting told us it's a matter of hours, a few days at most. I'm so sorry for you, honey. You basically watched your loved one fade away, deal with the good, the bad, and the disgusting aspects of aging, and then they die anyway. And you'll blame yourself for not doing even more. I wouldn't do it any other way, and neither would Mom, but it's difficult. Amen, sis. Amen, sis. Oh, goodness. I mean, we've all been through loved ones passing, watching them age. So it's hard. And sometimes it's raw. Like right now, it kind of is for me. So this comment, it adds a really important layer, because it reminds everyone that elder care isn't theoretical. It is exhausting, heartbreaking, and relentless in a way that people who haven't lived through it sometimes underestimate. And the writer isn't defending entitlement so much as explaining the emotional toll of watching someone decline for years while doing everything humanly possible to keep them safe and dignified. I mean, there's that word. That's the most important word, right? Keeping their dignity for them before they go, because it's easy to lose at that age, at that point in life. And, it helps us understand why families cling so tightly to homes too, and routines and traditions, when somebody finally passes, because those things become symbols of love and sacrifice, not just real estate. Okay. And while that doesn't suddenly make it okay to volunteer an ex-spouse's house without permission, it does explain why emotions run so hot around funerals and legacy property, and why situations like this turn explosive even when nobody starts out trying to be cruel. That's a rough one. All right, the third one here. Yep, that sentence is doing a lot of heavy lifting. While I think the original poster is well within his rights and is not the a-hole at all, in normal circumstances, I would likely have hosted some of my kids' family for the funeral of his great grandmother. Yeah, I would want to have cordial relationships with them for the child's sake. Amen. There you go. Yeah, I agree with you so wholeheartedly. This is where I was trying to go to. This is where I would come from, because it's still, you got to be a little bit more empathic when it comes to things like this, because come on, it's called compassion. Have it. It's not hard. So, however, it sounds like this is not normal circumstances. Absolutely not. Some stuff went down. It did. If their intrusion into the home was enough to be a part of his decision to divorce, then I totally get why he would draw this line. Yep. I don't know if his ex is trying to bully him into acquiescence, but not asking first and having people just show up, or if he lacks the ability to stand up to her family. Either way, it sounds like an uncomfortable situation. Oh, it does. This is a very balanced take. I agree with wholeheartedly. Okay. Because the commenter is holding two truths at the same time. That in a vacuum, most people would probably try to host family for a funeral out of compassion, especially when kids are involved, and you want to keep relationships calm for their sake. But this clearly isn't a vacuum situation. And the backstory matters a lot here, because when something is bad enough to factor into a divorce, it's no longer a small inconvenience. It is a pattern. And drawing a hard line against a pattern that already damaged your marriage isn't petty, it's self-protection. So whether the ex deliberately let people show up to pressure him, or simply froze under family expectations, the end result is the same. He got cornered. And this comment does a good job of acknowledging that normal funeral etiquette doesn't override a long history of boundary violations. Yeah. Which is exactly why so many people are split on this one. And I mean, yeah, can you blame them? For real? I can't. This one's rough. But all right, y'all. Before we get to what happens next, because this situation is about to take a turn and I want you fresh for it, okay? We're going to pause right here and run B Ninja episode 4 along with the song. Yes, I have a 4th episode, y'all. I'm loving doing this, okay? And it's so much fun. Y'all need to get into it. So stretch your legs after the B Ninja episode. It's like 3-4 minutes, y'all. Come on. You can stretch your legs while the song's playing as long as you turn it up full blast. All right? Please. I shortened it for you. Okay? Stretch your legs. Get you a drink. Keep those honey or stinger votes coming, y'all, because meet me right back here just in a few minutes, okay? I love y'all. I'll be back.
In every neighborhood, there are moments people try to shrink with language, moments they want to call nothing because admitting what they did would take more courage than brushing it off.
And tonight's case begins with one of those moments, when a porch went quiet after a loud argument and a nest full of baby birds didn't survive it.
Everyone slow down for a second, because yelling isn't going to tell me what happened, and the truth always comes out cleaner when people stop talking. long enough to hear themselves think, so let's start from the beginning and pretend nobody here is in a hurry to rewrite the order of
I
events.
clean my porch, that's it. Birds make messes, and I'm allowed to take care of my own place without the whole block acting like I committed a felony. You're allowed to talk, but you're not allowed to rush past you saw first. Who was here with you and why 3 people were already yelling before that broom ever hit the railing? And while you're doing that, I'd like to know if anybody tried calling animal rescue. One survivor has a way of changing the tone of a story, because it's harder to call something debris when it chirps in your hands.
Class dismissed. Now, to review the evidence. Let's see what the lab reveals. The break pattern on these twigs tells me the nest was struck downward rather than knocked loose by wind, and the scuff, which means this wasn't a careless bump while carrying groceries. It was at least 2 deliberate swings delivered after the nest had already fallen. 2 swings matters because accidents usually stop the first time something goes wrong and decisions usually don't. So I'm going to ask you again whether you knew there were baby birds in that nest before you picked up the broom.
I knew there were birds around, sure, but people are blowing this way out of proportion and acting like I'm some kind of villain over a porch problem. Nobody called you anything yet, but you are answering every question sideways instead of straight ahead, which usually means you know exactly why the neighbors were upset before anybody ever raised their voice. And for what it's worth, the species Mama's describing is protected this time of year, so porch problem and wild libations depending on what you did next.
Shell thickness and feather pattern put it squarely in that category, and judging by the dryness of the splintered fibers, the strikes happened minutes apart rather than seconds, which means there was time to stop after the first impact and choose another option.
Evidence doesn't argue, it simply waits for people to explain themselves around it.
Here's what I'm hearing, and tell me where I'm wrong, because this is the part where stories usually fall apart. You saw the nest, you heard neighbors telling you there were babies inside. You decided the fastest way to end the argument was to remove the problem. And when the first swing didn't finish it, you tried again.
I didn't think it was that serious.
People almost never do in the moment, is exactly why the moment is the thing we judge, not the excuse that comes later.
And before this goes any further, understand that what happens next depends entirely on what you decide to do right now, not on how loudly you insist this shouldn't matter.
There are 3 licensed wildlife rehab centers within 20 miles. The cost of emergency care is predictable. Replacement nesting platforms can be built under supervision, and volunteer restitution is often accepted in cases where the responsible party cooperates early.
Or the authorities handle it, and the process stops being flexible. So we negotiate. Exactly. While we still can.
Bee Ninja's world, mercy isn't something you stumble into by accident. It's something you walk toward on purpose.
So here's the fork in the road. You pay for the rescue and treatment of the surviving chick. You fund proper nesting structures for the season.
You work with conservation groups, and you own what happened in front of the people who watched it. I make this out of your hands completely.
You're saying I have to pay for all that?
I'm saying you already did something that can't be undone, and what you do next decides whether the rest of the story is about repair or consequences.
Honey or stinger? Choose carefully.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. A Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire. crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns to power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss beat doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame. Got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free. It's a love note to the world sign. Boss B.
All right, we're back. Let me pull this off here for a minute. Okay, so hope y'all like that new episode. Looks like I still got some kinks to work out, but hey, I'm learning. That's why I'm putting it out. Y'all tell me what's good, what's bad. Give it to me. I'm good. All right, so we're going to start the second half with an update. You know, I love me some updates, y'all. So a number of people have asked for an update. That would be me. Not much has happened until a few days ago. On Saturday, one of my ex's cousins, not the one who showed up at my door, we call him Dave, texted me. As you probably guessed from my original post, I do not have the best relationship with my ex's family. Yeah, enough said. This was true while we were together. However, I did have a good rapport. Rapport. Am I thinking about them? I don't know. With his particular cousin, or this particular cousin. Apparently, my ex and a number of the other family members had been talking bad about me in the family group chat. Of course they were. Dave reached out to get my side of things, but understood if I did not want to talk. I called him and relayed much of what I said in my original post in comments to him. So what I learned from my conversation with Dave is my ex told her family after the divorce that she still co-owned the house with me. Of course she did. Well, here you go. That I do not abide by the court's order regarding expenses for our son and that she cannot afford a lawyer to fight me on it. Are you kidding me? Look, Bish. No. Okay, so this update changes the temperature of the entire situation yet again because now we are no longer, my dog is drinking, y'all. Sorry. Save some for the fish, dude. Because now we are no longer just dealing with grief-fueled assumptions, right? And poor communication because we're dealing with misinformation being actively spread inside the family. And that matters a lot when you're judging intent, correct? Because according to Dave, who seems to be a relatively neutral party and someone that the original poster previously had a decent relationship with, the ex has been telling relatives that she still co-owns the house, and that The original poster is ignoring court-ordered expenses for their child and financially squeezing her. And if that is true, then suddenly the cousin's showing up with bags in hand, the family assuming they could stay, and the anger when he said no, stop looking like random entitlement and start looking like people who genuinely believed they were being locked out of a property their grieving relatives still partially owned by a man they had been told was already mistreating her. That tells me that the original poster walked into that confrontation already cast as the villain without knowing it. And that's huge because you cannot fairly negotiate with people who think you are violating court orders and hoarding property that still belongs to their loved one. And that makes his refusal, oh my gosh, to host them feel a lot less cold and a lot more like the inevitable collision that happens when one side has been fed completely different version of reality. Hi, Patty friend. I'm so glad you're here, honey. No matter when you show up. I was late today too. As you can see, it is almost 3:00 today. Yeah, my internet, everything's melting, so everything's freaking out. It's crazy. I hate it. Y'all, Texas sucks. So while we still do not know whether the ex is lying outright, I mean, it kind of seems like it, but exaggerating to gain sympathy or framing loosely in a way that conveniently benefits her is what she's doing. The fact that Dave independently noticed enough hostility in the group chat to reach out and verify the story strongly suggests that the original poster is not imagining the smear campaign, which in turn, I think, makes the funeral incident feel less like a single tragic misunderstanding and more like the first visible blow up from weeks or months of behind the scene narratives that were being shaped, So in B terms, I guess, this update pushes him further towards Honey on the original boundary and starts shifting more on the moral weight onto the ex, right? Yeah, she gets a stinger. She gets she gets a couple stingers, that's for sure. Yeah. Because if she really is telling her family that she still owns the house and that he is refusing to support their son when courts have already ruled otherwise, she is not just overwhelmed by grief here. She is actively inflaming tensions and setting him up to look cruel. And that makes it even more reasonable that he is unwilling to reopen his home to people who think he is cheating her and abusing his power. Because hosting relatives who believe you are a deadbeat villain is not a natural or a neutral favor. It's walking into a hostile environment in your own home. Because remember, he's living here. And at this point, my verdict tightens up significantly, because the original refusal to host still stands as justified. The update makes his reaction more understandable. And the bigger issue now becomes whether the ex is misrepresenting legal realities to her family in a way that is reckless or, well, dare I say, manipulative. Amen. I said it because that's exactly what it is, right? Because if she is, then she is the one manufacturing these confrontations. And until that gets corrected, the original poster is smart to keep firm boundaries and document everything. I can't stress that enough. Don't react, document. Because you know what? Funerals end. Unfortunately, they happen first. But false narratives inside families have a nasty habit of turning into permanent conflicts if nobody challenges them early. I set the record straight for him on both accounts. I own 100% of the house and bought her out of her 10% share. I also pay 100% of the medical cost and childcare, education costs for our son as ordered by the court. These are not hard things to write down. I also pay more than court ordered amount for child support. We talked a little bit more to catch up, and I thought nothing of it. Apparently, Dave decided to share the details of our conversation in the family group chat. Ruh-roh. Okay, on Monday, I got an angry long text from my ex about what Dave said in the group chat. Good. And that she wanted to talk. No. Thank you, drive through. Bye. No. We talked yesterday. She expressed how frustrated she is with everything, that she was and still is willing to do whatever it takes to make our relationship work. She said if I am not willing to try and make it work, the least I could do is work with her so she can pay me off over time for the house. But the house, put the house in a trust for our son so it stays in the family and not badmouth her to her family. Oh my God. Really? All right, this second part of the update pushes the story into an entirely new category, I think, because now we are no longer talking about a one-off funeral dispute or relatives making bad assumptions. We're talking about a full-blown narrative, war inside the family, and an ex-spouse who appears to be trying to rewrite legal reality in order to preserve, I don't know, leverage, because the original poster didn't just quietly correct Dave. He laid out very specific, very verifiable facts that he owns 100% of the house after buying out her 10%. That he pays all medical and childcare and education costs for their son as ordered by the court, and that he even pays more than the required child support. The fact that Dave took that information back to the group chat immediately explains why the temperature suddenly exploded, right? Because if family had been told for months that she still co-owned the house and that the original poster was dodging financial obligations to the child, then learning the opposite would make people furious, and not at the original poster, but at the person who had been feeding them the earlier version, which is why her follow-up call is so revealing. Because instead of focusing on correcting the record with her family, she pivots to ask him to reconsider the divorce, to work with her so she can slowly buy the house back, to place it in a trust that would keep it in the family, and you know what, to stop bad-mouthing her. I got a few choice words for her. I'll be good this time. So even though what she actually did was state court orders, okay, and financial facts to someone who asked for his side, and that combination is extremely telling. Okay, she is upset that the narrative slipped. That's what she got caught. That's the problem, right? She is trying to reopen negotiations that were already legally settled, and she is framing factual corrections as attacks on her reputation, which is a classic pressure tactic when, you know, someone realizes their leverage with outsiders depends on controlling the story. And while grief, financial stress, and divorce fallout absolutely make people desperate, they do not justify misrepresenting ownership or child support arrangements to relatives, okay? Especially when those relatives are then acting on that misinformation by showing up at someone else's house expecting lodging. So at this point, be wise, okay? The needle swings even harder towards OP being original poster, being justified in drawing hard boundaries, because he is not refusing out of spite. He is protecting himself from a family that based on what he was told, genuinely believed he was cheating their loved one, and that is not a safe or neutral environment to invite into your home. And the ex's request that he restructure property ownership again through a slow buyback or a trust after the court already ruled, combined with asking him to stop correcting false claims, reads far less like a grieving person seeking peace and far more like someone trying to regain financial and symbolic control through social pressure. I got a few choice words for her to be, all 4-lettered ones. Amen, sis. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And one of them starts with a C because, yeah, you are. Sorry, I hate that word. I don't use that word, but that's the first thing I thought of when this thing went over. So, okay, my verdict here. This update solidifies him firmly, not the a-hole, right? There's no way he's in that territory. It strengthens the case that the ex has been misrepresenting facts to rally her family and makes it completely reasonable for him to refuse to open or reopen property negotiations or host relatives until the truth is fully acknowledged, because cooperation cannot exist when one side is quietly telling everyone a different story behind the scenes. I mean, you can't expect that. That's crazy. Oh my goodness. Okay. 2 more sections on this one. I reiterated that there are no circumstances. There we go. Under no circumstances under which I would want to be with her. Good for you. And for all that lost my lip jargon, let me just say, he don't want to be with her. Okay? That's what that meant. Sorry. The least of which is that she is actively lying about me and our divorce to her family, right? I also restated that I will not let her pay me off for the house because it will take her decades to even pay me back for how much money I have put into the house. Even if there was no interest, I will not put it in a trust because the type of trust she wants is specifically designed to prevent me from selling the house in the future if I need to do so. I also stated that I did not ask Dave, Otto, stop whining at me, please. I'm trying to get through this. I'm trying to read, dude. This dog, I swear to God. Oh, there he is, Patty. You see? There he is. This is my boy. God. He's a slobberer. Let me just put that right there. You saw him. If you didn't, rewind. He's right here. Okay, I also stated that I did not ask Dave to share any of our conversations, and everything I said to him was 100% factual. It was. I mean, judging by what you've said so far. I told her moving forward, I am doing no more than what I am legally obligated to do for her. There you go. Yes. I'm glad you got to see him. Quit, Mo. That's the other one. He's the little one, thinks he's bigger. See, I will only pay the child support amount that is legally required and not a cent more. I will put the extra I was paying towards the money I was already setting aside for our son. If she wants to buy the house, she can at fair market value, but I will sell the house if or when I feel it is appropriate for myself and our son, regardless of what her or her family want. If or when I sell it, I will get the highest price possible, regardless of whether that person is part of my ex's family. And if her family keep being a problem about the house, it will probably be sooner rather than later. Good for you. She left mad, but that is where things stand. Amen, sir. Thank you. That's awesome. Yes, that's awesome. All right, now we are at the point where Boss B has to put the pen down here, okay, and take a breath and look at the entire arc of this story instead of just the funeral weekend, because this final update is where OP finally stops negotiating emotionally and starts drawing legal and financial lines in permanent marker. And while some people are going to recoil at how hard and absolute that conversation sounds when you zoom out and stack every piece of information we've been given, the divorce, the court papers, the orders, the attempted trust arrangement that would lock him into never selling, the misrepresentations to family, the pressure campaign through relatives, requests to slowly buy him out over decades, and the framing of factual corrections as bad mouthing. Come on, y'all. What he actually did here is he shut down a pattern of manipulation and reset the relationship strictly to co-parenting boundaries. Don't blame you, because telling your ex that reconciliation, I can't talk, is off the table when she is simultaneously lying about you to her family. It's not cruelty. Bubba, come on. It is self-protection, okay? And refusing to renegotiate property terms that were already settled by a court is not spite. It is basic financial sanity, especially when, the proposed alternatives would leave him unable to sell an asset that represents most of his investment. And yes, tightening his support payments down to exactly what is legally required will strike some viewers as petty. But he was explicit that he is still setting that extra money aside for his son rather than cutting the child off, which matters. And more importantly, he is responding to a situation where goodwill was being used against him socially. So this final update, it cements the shift we saw earlier. This is no longer about hosting cousins for a funeral. This is about an ex attempting to use family pressure and misinformation to regain control over a house she no longer owns. And the original poster deciding he is done playing along with that dynamic, which, okay, that makes his stance firm but reasonable. And, from a B perspective, my verdict would be solid. He is not the a-hole. Plenty of honey there, with the only caution being that when you fully in co-parenting situations, you need to stay calm. Okay, let's put it this way: document everything and avoid retaliatory language so the focus stays on the child rather than on punishing the other parent. But as written, his boundaries are clear, right? Justified and long overdue. And the fact that she walked away angry, it does not invalidate them. It just means she didn't get the outcome she was pushing for. So we do have a few more comments before we get out of here today. So the first one is, it takes incredible balls to tell such terrible lies about you to her family, then say she is willing to do whatever it takes to make your relationship work. You are well rid of her, and she can only blame herself for you reducing child support to the court-ordered level. Agreed. So I think they're reacting to the contradiction of the heart of the update, okay? Because it is wild to claim that you want reconciliation while simultaneously telling your family that your ex still co-owns the house and isn't supporting his own child. And those two things cannot coexist without blowing up and blowing up trust completely. So while the wording is spicy, the core point stands. Lying to relatives about court orders and property ownership is exactly the kind of behavior that forces someone to go strictly legal instead of generous. And tightening finances to the official amount isn't revenge when goodwill has been turned into a weapon, right? It's what happens when informal flexibility gets abused, if you ask me. In my opinion, I'm not a professional. So, all right, the second one. Tip for you, and please take this to heart. I've seen this happen more times than I wish to remind you. Remember, your ex will absolutely tell your child that you are the reason her familial house is no longer in the family if you choose not to sell to them. Oh, okay. They can buy it back from you. They will tell your child all of the great memories they and their family had growing up there and how they will miss out on those same memories. Pardon me. You will be made to be the enemy if you tell that child the entire story. You've got a point. I've seen this happen at a lake 4 times. A lake. And I'm 40 years old. Here's your strategy. You tell the entire family to create an LLC with shares based on the amount that can be contributed or financed. Purchase the property from you so they can keep it in the family and all have equal shares in the property for them and their children. Then you watch as the family tears themselves apart. Okay. I mean, okay. Who does maintenance? Did everyone contribute to taxes and water and gas, electrical? Who is using it the most? Are some not doing anything but paying tax and using the house and not cleaning up or mowing the lawn? They will rip each other apart and sell the property within 5 years. And this is how you win and don't have to be the bad guy to your child because you did the right thing. You gave them grandma's house back. I mean, that's a sound answer if you ask me. That's a good idea. I can't stand women like that. She sounds vindictive and spiteful and is not putting the child first. Amen. Amen. Exactly my point. Yes, thank you. Patty, this is why we go so well together because we're on the same wavelength. We have to be. So I think this person is trying to protect the original poster from a very real long-term risk too. And being cast as the villain in his child's eyes over a sentimental family property. Yeah, they're right. That legacy houses often turn into emotional weapons in divorce narratives. But where they go too far is turning the solution into a kind of social engineering experiment designed to let the family implode. I'm a little edgy on that part, but I get it. And because while offering a fair market value buyback is definitely reasonable and even generous, deliberately setting people up to fail just to preserve optics for a kid drifts away from clean boundaries and into petty strategy. I have to say it. I mean, well, it's kind of a cool idea. It's not really a cool idea. Okay. So the smart takeaways here isn't watch them tear themselves apart. Okay. Yeah. I keep saying okay because I'm not sure I like that part. Bubba, you need to move your honey over. Thank you. This big old dog thinks he is a lap dog and he is just trying to get in this little bitty seat with me. Okay. So keep communications factual. Make sure your child eventually has access to the truth without dragging themselves into adult conflicts. Right? Stop. Yuck. He's licking. It's a liquor dog. You know, I don't agree with that last comment. I mean, I kind of understand what he's saying and I get it. You know, that's great. He's got a point. He really does. And I think that would probably be his best bet. But I don't know. I think I would have to have some more context on this one, because it sounds to me like there's a lot of misunderstanding here and misrepresentation, and misrepresentation can definitely bite you in the ass. And I think that's going to happen either way he goes. So, all right, y'all. That one was heavy, layered. And honestly, one of the cases where the more information you get, the more complicated the human side becomes. Because what started as a funeral week hosting dispute, okay, right, turned into something way bigger about narratives and boundaries, legal lines, and what happens when goodwill gets weaponized. There's no other way to put it. It's weaponized. It's absolutely weaponized, and that kind of sucks, right? And that's exactly why I love doing this show, honestly, with you guys, especially you, Sage and Patty Friend. Y'all being here just helps me, because it gets me into the story a little bit too when y'all are talking to me. Honestly, thank you for being here. So the chat never disappoints, right, when it comes to seeing angles, and I do mean you, calling out patterns and wrestling with the uncomfortable parts. That's the best part about this. And instead of just picking sides and walking away, if you're watching live, thank you for spending your Wednesday with me in the hive. And if you're catching this on replay, make sure you drop your honey or singer verdicts down there, okay? I love to see it, because I know there's a lot of mix going on. Not everybody has the same opinion, but your opinion counts no matter what. Listen, I read them all. I go through them later. And sometimes y'all change my mind long after the cameras stopped rolling. So don't go anywhere just yet either, because I do have a little bit of special going on. I have to do my BB promos at the end before I close this out. Y'all go over there and watch it. Y'all go over and check out Tuber Chat. Y'all go over and you check out the Iron Sharpening Iron Universe. You know what? They're doing a flip the script tonight, and it's going to be amazing. You need to be there for that one, because I'm going to be there, and it's going to be great. I'm going to watch greatness tonight. I think that every time I go to watch one of those shows, even when it's mine. All right, y'all. I love you. You know I do. Love you, Sage. Love you, Patty Friend. Love you all. I will see you, tomorrow. Y'all need to tell me what you think in the comments about my time, because 12 o'clock seems too early for me, or to me. It's not early for me, to me. I'm trying to keep with everybody else's schedule that loves me. Y'all let me know, okay? What time do you think is a good time for Ask a Bee during the day? Every day. We're going to take a poll on this stuff and everything. Y'all go check it out. I love you too. See you soon. Tomorrow, in fact. Bye.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches, building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why.
If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live weekdays at 12 p.m. Central, and each day has its own focus. Same honesty, same voice, just different conversations depending on the day. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
A boss be rising.